Hi friends, I hope you're all doing well. I'm so glad to be able to share this spiritual practice with you. As we begin, I invite you to get comfortable. Take a moment to feel your groundedness on the earth, the life flowing into you through your breath, and the awareness in your own consciousness. Relax, still your body and mind, and open yourself to Spirit in whatever way is helpful for you. Feel free to pause the video until you feel ready to dive into the work of today's practice. And then when you're ready, invite images into your mind of the world as you see it now. Don't try to control or judge those images. Just let them flow into your awareness. Note them for a moment, and then release them to make space for the next image. When you feel that you've done this enough, take a few moments to collate your images into a one-sentence story that reflects how you feel about the world now. You can write the story down in your journal or on your phone, or you can just let the words flow through you. But once again, don't judge. Don't judge your story. Don't try to fit it into any external standard to which you may be tempted to conform. Just allow the story to emerge. And then when you've got your one-sentence story in front of yourself, ask yourself what you would want to change about your story of the world. Where do you fit into the story? What impact does the story have on your life? And what would you prefer to be different? Sit with your thoughts and feelings for a moment, and then invite the Divine Spirit to ignite your imagination as we begin to explore what a different story might look like. And this prayer may be helpful to you. Spirit of God, fill my eyes with a vision of your dream for my world. Fill my mind with the wisdom to see how that dream may become a reality. And fill my being with the courage and strength to do what it takes to live in your country, even as I live in the ordinary world. So may it be. What are your primary values? What sets your priorities and guides your decisions? How did you come by those values, and to what extent do you evaluate or interrogate them? Have your values changed over time? And if they did, was that an intentional decision on your part, or did it just happen? One thing that neuroscience has shown us over the last few years is that most of our consciousness, most of our mental activity happens beyond our awareness. For example, I'm a researcher in the sense that before I make a decision, I explore the options, I research the benefits, the features and possibilities of what I'm considering. I read reviews if applicable. And then, after doing all this work, I make my decision, happy in the knowledge that it was a rational, well-informed choice. Except that it wasn't. Not really. What we now know is that for the most part, we make decisions almost instantly, based not on knowledge or research, but based on subconscious cues, emotional responses, and a bunch of other criteria that we're not even aware of. All that research and mental weighing of options is really just our brain trying to convince us that our decision is rational. Now, for me, that was a very humbling thought. Now, obviously, this is an oversimplification of very complex neurological processes. But I have found the essential principle to hold true in my life. That doesn't mean that I don't ever change my mind after doing my research or that the mental work I do is meaningless. It just means that I've had to learn to be more aware of the subconscious motivations at work in my decision making. But I've also learned that I'm not at the mercy of these subconscious forces within me. As long as I'm unaware that they're there, as long as I remain oblivious to their influence, I'll be controlled by them. But if I do the work to identify these hidden motivations, values, and priorities, then I can shape them to be what I believe is more in line with the life I seek to live. And that's why I believe so strongly in spiritual practice. An intentional spiritual practice empowers us to choose what directs our lives and decisions rather than being carried along by hidden forces. But how do we know what to choose? How do we determine what values, priorities, feelings, ideas, and habits we should embrace and strengthen in our lives and which we should discard? Well, for me, that is where Jesus' teaching about God's reign of love comes in. Ultimately, the fundamental choice we need to make is extremely simple. Not easy, but simple. Generally, our society is based on minimizing fear and protecting ourselves from threat. Scratch the surface of almost any structure, any law, any moral norm or cultural custom, and you will find something almost every time from which we are trying to protect ourselves, or something of which we're afraid and trying to keep at bay. Our global economy, for example, is based on maximizing profit in order to protect ourselves from poverty and the anxiety and insecurity it brings. Our national defense systems are designed to protect us from the threat of violence or invasion from people who are different from us and whom we believe want to destroy our way of life. Our education systems are designed to protect us from ignorance and give us the information we need to navigate the society we've built. Our healthcare systems are designed to protect us for as long as humanly possible from death. Even our political systems are designed to protect us from people who think so differently from us and who we believe will destroy our society by their radically different ideas. I could go on and on and on. The problem is that none of these self-protection systems really work. At least not for everyone, and not for very long. By trying to save our lives, by putting our energy into protecting us from what we fear, we end up destroying ourselves and one another. We have the world we have because we have the values and priorities that we have, and they lead us to live the way we do. And we can't build a better world or a better life by using the same ways of thinking, loving, and being that created this one. We need a radically different way. Which brings us to the other side of our simple choice. As we've just seen, we can and often do choose to live by fear and self-protection. But the other side is that we can listen to Jesus' teaching about God's reign of love. As we've seen in the last few weeks, Jesus took the dream of David's reign, David's kingdom being restored, and he shifted it from being a nationalistic political project to being a global spiritual project. For Jesus, the reign of God includes everyone. Everyone belongs and everyone is beloved. Love is the key. Love is the way. Love is what casts out fear and leads us to a world not of self-protection, but of self-giving. And that's our choice. Fear and self-protection on the one hand, or love and self-giving on the other. At its most basic, this is what Jesus' vision of the kingdom of God is all about. Jesus believed, and he believed it so strongly that he was willing to die for it, that only love can lead us into a life of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. He believed that only love can address the damage that fear does to our lives and our world. Only love can set us free and empower us to live fully as God-imaged, God-beloved human beings who respect and value each other as much as we do ourselves. And once we have grasped this, it changes our values, our priorities, our motivations, our attitudes, and our actions. If the internal subconscious forces that guide our decision-making and behavior are rooted in fear, then we will live one way, the way we do now. But if we do the work that spiritual practice is designed to do, to make us aware of what drives us, and to shift those things to become healthier, more connected, more compassionate, and more contributing, that connection, compassion, and contributing becomes our way of being, that shift can move us from a fear-based living to love-based living. And then we live completely differently. In the last 8 weeks, we've explored 3 Old Testament ideas that influenced Jesus' vision of God's reign. We began by looking at the prophetic ideas of the day of the Lord in the last days. This was a vision of a messianic reign of God that would be set up and that would bring the world into an era of peace and prosperity and unity. Then we explored the idea of the Jubilee, the every 50-year celebration when debts were cancelled, slaves were freed, and land was returned to its original owners. For Jesus, this was expanded into a vision of justice that included every facet of human living, that included the animals and the earth itself. And then we explored Jesus' expanded vision of David's reign being restored. In Jesus' teaching, all 3 of these visions come together in a dream of a world that is built by love, in love, and for love, where all are welcome and where everyone belongs. Where justice is love in action, and love is the fruit of a world that is truly just for everyone. The challenge is that choosing to live by love puts us at odds with the fear-based culture of our world. To live by love is subversive and countercultural. It's a choice to opt out of the values and priorities of our society. To the extent that we can, it's not completely possible to opt out. And to live by love is to choose to risk making love and self-giving the fundamental force that shapes who we are and what we do. This is an idealistic dream, I know that. And we can't do it perfectly. We certainly can't do it all the time. But we can make it our life's quest to live into this ideal of love and self-giving a little more each day. In the end, it all comes down to this. We have the world we have with everything that isn't working on so many levels because we live the way we live. If we want a different world, we need to live a different way. And that means different values, different priorities, different attitudes, and different ways of being. And we need those different ways to be installed in our subconscious, our instinctive center, so that they become our automatic way of being and responding. And that is what spiritual practice is all about. Installing, if you like to use a computer metaphor, a new software into us, a new way of working, a new operating system that changes how we function in the world, in our relationships with God, with ourselves, with others, and with the universe. That's what spiritual practice is designed to do. And it is that fundamental truth, this quest to shift from a life of fear and self-protection to a life of love and self-giving. That is the fundamental truth on which Evo Faith is built. Return to that space of groundedness and stillness that you were in at the start of this practice. Allow a few moments for this reflection to sink into your heart, and take note of anything that stood out for you, that challenged you or inspired you. Now go back to the story you wrote in the beginning of this practice. Compare it to the dream that we've just been talking about. And now I encourage you to write another story about the world. This time, make it a little longer, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs, and describe the world as you would like it to be. Keep in mind how you see the world now as expressed in the short story you wrote earlier, and also keep in mind the dream that we've explored in today's reflection. And try to make this new story that you're writing now realistic and practical, but also hopeful and filled with possibilities. And again, you can pause the video if you need a while to do this. And when you're done writing your new story about the world, make sure to keep it somewhere close to you so that you can return to it throughout the week, so that you can allow it to fill your heart and mind with its inspiration. And now, as we prepare to return to the practical details of living, take a moment to identify one thing you can do to live as if your hopeful story of the world was a reality now. Think of one thing that can move you a little closer to making this dream real for you, and commit to doing that thing as consistently as you can through the week. See yourself living in this new world of your story. Imagine making the habits and feelings and attitudes of your story the way you actually live now, even though your world, the one you're really in right now, may be very different from the one you've been imagining. And now go into your week to live in God's country, even as you live in our ordinary world.